Chisao Hata, a performing artist, community organizer, and global citizen artist. Her work shares the Japanese-American story to communities from Hiroshima, Japan, to Cuba, and New Mexico to Ontario, Oregon. As an arts educator, her perspectives are shared as an Oregon Humanities conversation leader, which is awesome, and Vanport Mosaic Festival Stories and Movement artist. She originated Gambatte Be Strong, Stories of Japanese American Displacement and Resilience in Portland, Oregon, and is a partnering artist at the Dance Exchange in Takoma Park, Maryland. Chisao is on the board of directors for the Oregon Nikkei Endowment, American Music Program, and advisory board of the Physicians for Social Responsibility. She's a founding member of Portland Taiko Theater Diaspora, and serves on the Regional Art and Culture Council Arts Education Committee. We're so happy that she's here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yay. I think we're going to get to know each other tonight, so I appreciate you coming. But we're going to, let's see, what I'm going to say thank you to Amy Gray for having me here to have the opportunity to talk to you all tonight. And I'm going to first ask you to take a moment to observe the piece that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to play a little music, and then we're going to sit around here, and then I'm going to talk some more. And we'll get a chance to know each other, and I'll tell you kind of how the evening is going to go. Okay? So if you enter in here, the guy in the corner is not real. Just it's kind of creepy. It's kind of but this is the piece right here. Welcome to, just take a moment to look at this piece. Yes, And sculpture is such that you have to really look at it from all directions, right? Can you play? Oh. And then they're going to get the chairs. And when you feel like you've seen the piece, then there's some stools, right? And we're going to have you just sit out here. But I want you to just wave to the hall, too. Wave to that nice hall. And come get a seat. Oh, that's nice. You guys are circling around so nicely. But you didn't have to, right? Yeah, move forward. Move on. Move on in, Martha. Move on in. Is everybody okay? Because you can move forward. I'm not gonna hurt you at all. I promise. The closer you are to her, Okay, thanks, Derek. So welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. This is kind of like my second official greeting to you today. And I wanted to start, I like the way that Amy started to give respect to the land that was here and the people that were here who have been dispossessed of their land and a way of life. But we've been dealing with a lot in our world. Just seems like it just keeps happening and keeps coming. So I really want this evening to be and feel like a healing moment for you. And I hope that it is. And I feel like, in a way, we're losing our moral compass. And I don't know if you listen to NPR, but this morning, you know how things like come on right when you're supposed to hear it. It's like, and then like inform you like for the rest of the day. Is this mic okay, by the way? Is it good? Okay. So I was listening to, I don't know if you've heard of Rutger Bregman, but he wrote the book called Utopia for Realists. It's a very interesting book. And he says that we all know what we're against, but do we know what we're for? So I would highly recommend you look at that. But on the radio this morning, so the UN had a report that they were doing a little study that they did. And America came out last, or really close to last, in the country the most unhappy. Which is a bit disconcerting, but I'm sure we all have ideas of why that is, why that's happening in our country and not in other countries. But I want to just take a moment of stillness, and then I'm going to share something with you. So I'm just going to ask you to be quiet for a moment and maybe take a few breaths in and out. So welcome back. I just wanted to know, when you're looking at this piece, did anything like arise for you? Did you feel anything? Did you think anything? When you look at that, what do you feel? Sadness? Happiness? Contemplation?
Peacefulness. Peacefulness.
Peacefulness. Curiosity. So, if I wasn't a dancer, and I have had moments in my life when I have sculpted or painted, because dance and theater seems to be amorphous. And sometimes I just wanted a little thing on my shelf to get dusty, that I could pick it up and enjoy that. But I want to ask you to contemplate something, and during the course of the evening we'll be thinking about that. And I want to ask you to think about or feel about, what do you hold precious? And in my kind of exploring this, I want to share something with you. So I appreciate so much the earth and stone, and Brancusi, actually, this is bronze, but he did all his work by hand. He was engaged and involved in the entire process. He had no interns, so he did it all by hand. So I was thinking, what do I hold precious? Well, this kind of reminded me of the egg which is what inspired Brancusi. And if you look at not only this work, but many of his works are based on the shape. And I'm like the beginning of life, the beginning of everything in the shape of an egg.
Now I can see the face looking more of a shape.
Yeah, yeah. And after you go home and you study, you'll see that so many of his pieces are in that shape, or the essence of the shape. And so this is something that I brought to share with you that is a precious thing to me. And it might just look like a bowl, but this summer I lost a dear, dear friend. And a couple weekends ago, I opened this package. And he was a community activist, and that's how I knew him. And we did many projects together. But then when I turned it over, it said, Mike Kahn. I didn't even know he did pottery. And his wife sent this as a gift to me to remember Mike. So even if I didn't have this in my hands, I would try to, imagine like how this thing feels as I'm holding it, this precious thing. This happens to be my precious thing. I would hold it like a lot of different ways. But I'm going to ask you to explore that and think about that as we go on through the night. You don't have to answer it. There will be no test at the end. So this is my precious thing. So Constantin Brancusi was born February 19th in 1878. What does that date mean to you, Janice? February 19th. What do you think? Barbara, does that?
The day of remembrance.
So
Executive Order 9066.
But
It-
the different year.
it's a different year.
Then I know that, yes, yeah, 906.
So that was pretty interesting to me that Constantin Brancusi is born in Romania, but of course many years before in 1878. But February 19th in 1942 was the issuance of Executive Order 9066, which affected 120,000 Japanese Americans on the West Coast, my parents being two of them. Anyway, his influence on modern art is really not debatable. He was an amazing, prolific artist, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about why I selected this work, how I came to kind of my understanding of art and sculpture. But what's important in what I'm going to talk about in a little bit as we go through is that Brancusi studied with Rodin, with Auguste Rodin. So he actually said, you're not doing what I want to do. So that's all good. I got what I needed, so I'm going to move on. But he had somebody to study with. There was a master teacher that he could go to. He left Romania, he went to Paris, and then he found Rodin. And in subsequent years, there was another artist, because Brancusi influenced much of modern art that we see today. But another artist named Isamu Noguchi. You guys can get a stool over here. And he was particularly interesting to me because he's also Japanese, but his father was born in Japan. His mother's Irish. And he was also interned, so there's this connection there. But he also designed most of the of the props. They're not props. I can't even call them props. The designs for the set for Martha Graham. So he came during a time when there's just this huge flourishing of art, right? Brancusi influenced probably everybody in modern art today. That's not only in sculpture, but in any form of it. And so he passed on his knowledge, his influence, his experience to all these other people, like Arp, Henri Moore, Degas. And so, like I said, if I wasn't a dancer, I'd probably be a sculptor, because I've learned so much when I've taken just a little bit of dabbling. So today, this is what we're going to kind of cover, talking about that teacher legacy and what that means. If you're a teacher or have been a teacher, you know where you maybe fit or have been inspired in that legacy. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about my early years and how I was influenced to become an artist. And I'm going to share a little bit of a writing that I did, and talk a little bit about my work today. You're going to have some questions, I hope, about that. And then I'm going to ask you to take this moment in time that we're sharing together to interact a bit together. We're going to do this. It'll be fine. Trust me, it'll be fine. It'll just be great. There's no right or wrong way. There's absolutely no right or wrong way. And then when we're all done, we're feeling really great, and we want to know each other more, and we want to talk each other more, we're going to go eat together. And we're going to find out, well, what was your precious thing? And what was your precious thing? So how I came to this was that I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. So it doesn't seem like this little Japanese girl would have ended up in Des Moines, Iowa. But I want to read you this. I don't know if I'm going to read you the whole thing, because how much time do we have? So I'm a sansei. I wrote this for a state bill that was going to introduce executive order to be recognized. And it just tells you a little bit about me instead of an introduction or through my notes. So I'm sansei, a third generation Japanese American, and my grandfather was Gunichi Tamiyasu, and he married a picture bride. His picture bride was Chisao Tajima in 1916, and they settled in Hood River, Odell. I only met my grandfather once and never knew my grandmother, as she died in childbirth with her 9th child when my mother was 16 years old. So my mother was Kesai Tamiyasu, and she had a dream to become a nurse, because while she worked on the farm, she couldn't, because she was always sick. I don't know why she was sick, but she ended up having to go to the hospital a lot. So all she ever wanted to do was to become a nurse. So because she was the oldest of 8 in the family, it would seem like when her mother died, she would be the one, right, to take care of all the other kids. But my grandfather said, well, but you have a dream to be a nurse. I'm going to help you be a nurse. So the next daughter got hit with it. So he took her to Nihon Machi, or what's known as Japantown, which is the area that's now known as Chinatown, but before Chinatown, it was Nihon Machi, Japantown. And he led her to people that helped her become a nurse. She went to Whitman, Walla Walla, and then to Portland Sanitarium. Then she was assigned by the U.S. Public Health Service to Mare Assembly Center. And she was the 225th incarcerated person there. And she went then to Poston internment camp in Arizona, where she was paid $19 a month as a professional. And exiting camp wasn't easy because you had to have a job, right? You had to have a job, and so she got one in Boulder, Colorado at the Boulder Sanatorium, which supported her release. The War Relocation Authority released her husband, Ted Hata, whom they were married in Poston, Arizona. And they decided to travel away from Colorado. Started, I don't know where they were going, Chicago. They had friends in Iowa. They ran out of gas because it was gas rationing time. They ran out of gas on 27th and Forest, and then they found a little house on 23rd, on 1800 23rd. And then that's where I grew up, and that's where they lived for 50 years. Executive Order 9066 fractured my life. My parents made a new home in Des Moines, Iowa, and without a Japanese American community, without extended family, and in a city where there are only 10 families to build homes, businesses, and new lives. So executive order, February 19th, shaped my life, shaped my identity, my culture, and my community that was fractured and shamed by this order. I'm going to say as a presidential order, just that your ears should be going up a bit. And I often question who I would have become if my family was not subjected to racism, racist policies, and failed leadership and displacement. How much did I lose? The loss to my grandparents and parents is immeasurable, but as a third-generation Japanese American, one decision by this country affected my entire life and the lives of many other families who left Oregon, left the West Coast, in California and Washington, and settled east of the Rockies. Who could I have become if my life was unaffected by this historic event that denied my rights as an American citizen? And how did I feel when my class looked at me in disgust on Pearl Harbor Day? That was many years later. The feelings of a child who experiences racism, rejection, and stern judgment is a loss for our country. And America suffered with the issuance of Executive Order 9066, and we as Americans all became less human, less brave, and less empathetic. So if we are truly going to be caretakers of our earth and each other, is there a choice which road is the higher road for the greater good? We must acknowledge and heal and ensure that any action, order, or law or policy that creates suffering for a few does not make the democracy America can truly be. So here I am growing up in Des Moines, Iowa, and for many years I hated the fact that I was from Des Moines, Iowa, because you can imagine there weren't very many Japanese there. But I had an opportunity in Des Moines, Iowa that I later realized. So in 4th grade, my art teacher, because everybody had an art teacher, like a teaching artist art teacher, like a real artist art teacher, decided that I should attend art museum school. So from 4th grade, all the way through middle school, I attended the Des Moines Art Center. And then my school was right across the street from Drake University. And Drake University had a children's theater program. So from 2nd grade, I just walk across the street to Drake University, to the children's theater program, where I was trained by Portia Boynton. I'm going to mention these teachers' names because I want to pay homage to them and remember what they have passed on to me in this little theater in Des Moines, Iowa. So if I wasn't in an art studio, I was in a dance studio. If I wasn't in, I didn't mention dance. Then the other 3 days I took dance after school. And then I was in the theater. So I remember the smells and the tastes of these places. And all of these things were happening at once, right? It wasn't like this and then this. So everything kind of came in and everything was integrated into who I then became. And so these teachers really shaped me. Mrs. Brooks was my 4th grade art teacher that sent me to the Des Moines Art Center. And there at the Des Moines Art Center, where I was trained every Saturday by a couple, the Richardsons, they were a husband-wife team. And what they would do is they wanted you to experience art. And so they reproduced the caves of France. And you would go through them and you would look through these little things and you go, whoa, look at that. They reproduced the paintings. And then, so my dance teacher was Rose Lorenz. And I started with her when I was like 5, all the way through middle school and high school until she moved to Arizona and I moved to Oregon. And then I said, you need to come to Oregon. You need to visit my dance studio. And she said, well, I could, but I'm just too busy teaching. And so she was up there teaching 90 and 100 people in Arizona dance. And Mr. Mitchell, who was my middle school and high school art teacher, African American, who was a real artist in the schools. I'm just going to like underscore that because you might get that. I think that that's an important thing to have. In between all that time, I was studying piano. Of course, I had to study piano. But more than that influence was my mother played the piano. She couldn't sing, but she thought she could sing, and I, as an only child, didn't want to tell her she couldn't sing because she loved to sing. So I grew up with that, singing at home and the piano and my mom and all these other influences. So by the time I was in middle school, I had an English teacher. And this English teacher, her name was Mrs. Holly, and she said, you know, I think that you should write a piece for the assembly, for the middle school assembly. I'm like, well, like what? She's, well, you could do a solo. That would be really great. And I ended up creating this like solo. I don't know where it came from or why I had the motivation to do that, but that was really my first introduction to creating an original piece of art for an audience. Then when I went on to high school, I had Mr. Thompson, John Thompson, or what we called him JT. And he was kind of flamboyant, but he did not care who you were, what you looked like. If you were good, you were going to get the part. So therefore, I got to play Abigail in the Crucible. What? Yes, I was Japanese with a little Salem witch trials. Okay. So I had this really fertile ground, right, growing up. And I feel like when you get exposure to the arts when you're young, it's a really critical time. So do I have to push something? Oh, you're going to push it. Thank you, Derek. So I wrote a little something for you today. It's called How to Become an Artist. It's my reflection. That's a reflection by Chisao Hata. It's some of this and some of that, but it's not either or. It's both and. Play. Play in the mud. Play in the mud, making mud pies with fancy toppings on the top, with grass and stones, and sell them for real. Play with dolls under the dining room table. Roll up the rug and move out the rug and move out the furniture. Play. Make. Play. Make architectural houses out of leaves. Play teacher. One who reads and plans and dances and serves cookies to everyone. And play doctor with all the tools of the trade for real. Benefits of having a nurse mom. Play how to heal. Have your patients draw. Without judgment, it's all beauty. But get the facts straight, because there are rules. Art is art, and it's always reaching for more ways to love. Listen. Listen to music. Sing. Learn to sing. Learn to play music. Whisper. Dance and listen and dance and make with others you love and others who love in a different way. Learn to listen to them too. Without judgment. Art is art. And it's always reaching for more ways to love. Look carefully. Look through your nose. Look through your hands. Look through your breath. Look, because your eyes are only one vessel. Feel your body sweat your heart, your breath, into it. Connect with ancestors. Feel what is the right thing to do without judgment. The art is art, and it's always reaching for more ways to love. Do all the above. Do all the above. Make, play, listen, move, look, observe, and remember. Hold and flow quietly and loudly. Not in an either-or kind of way, but I guess I didn't do the last page. That's interesting. Not in an either-or kind of way, but a both and. So just breathe it all in. Breathe it in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in, live. Breathe out, love. Okay, that was interesting. I have to check, make sure I get all the pages next time. It was close. It was really close, though. I think I was really close. So, you've seen a lot of pictures, and I'm not explaining a lot of them. I just wanted you to kind of see them. But I also want you to know that we are all of us, creative beings. We all have this. We all have a muse inside of us. We can talk about muses for days and the importance of the muse. But you saw a little bit about what I did. I ran a private studio. I taught in a dance school. I did gazillions of shows, sometimes 26 a year. I don't know. I lost count. I created programming for public education. I made a piece called Drum Souls that was based on what America can be, what America looks like. We have nothing to fear, actually. We have everything to gain from a fuller engagement with everyone in our country. You heard Amy talk about my experience of doing work with a group called the Dance Exchange in Takoma Park, Maryland. And as a result of that, I created a process through movement and social engagement called a move back. So during plays, right after plays, instead of a talk back, I ask audiences to move together. Because I feel like sometimes talking gets in the way, that nonverbal is really a better place to go sometimes. And so what I want to do now is I want to invite you, hi, to just kind of come out in this hall and walk around a bit and go back to that beginning question that I asked you, like what is precious? And I want you to think about how would you hold, I mean, you saw me hold my precious thing. What is this precious thing and how would you hold it? Okay, so I'm going to just play a little bit of music. And I'm going to just let you take a walk. Get out of your chairs and take a walk and find your precious way that you're going to hold your precious thing. So you can probably leave your things there and yeah, I'm sure they'll be fine. And journey back around the muse and take a journey. Take a little journey. Think about what that thing is. Come around, yeah, perfect. Come around that hallway. Can you get over? Are they stuck? So what you're doing on this walk is you're figuring out your movement for your precious thing. Right? I know you want to look, but you can look and move and think and find a move. Find a move that's how you would hold your precious thing. What is your precious thing? Okay, if you guys will all come back this way, just a tiny, I'm gonna come to you. Okay, so my precious thing was this. Whatever your precious thing is, think of a movement to it, okay? That's your job. By the time you get over here, think of your precious thing. Think of a movement that you would do to hold. You can't do anything wrong. Everybody got it? Everybody got a way to hold your precious thing? Okay. Now what I want you to do is pick some things. However you want to pick them, whatever that word means to you, pick. And then I want you to put whatever that thing is that you pick. It can be with your precious thing or around your precious thing. So when I say the word pick, how would you move? Go. You can't do anything wrong. You can move around and pick. What would your picking action be? And think of it as picking and putting and moving with your precious thing. Feel free to move around. The more you move, the more you'll know what to do. You'll feel it. Okay? Just keep moving around. What is your precious thing? Everybody got one? Everybody kind of have one? Okay. Okay, now as you're walking around, just find one other person to share your precious thing. Okay, that might be just look at my precious thing. You don't have to give it to them. You can just share, okay? And try not to talk. Let the moment just be. Try not to talk. Just look at each other and move together.
Did you ever think of me as your best friend?
Talk to each other with your hands, not your mouth.
Did I ever
It's so tempting, but you're going to talk with your body.
I'm not complaining.
Share your precious thing.
I never tried to feel. I never tried to feel.
And when you're ready, you can find your way back. You can move with your precious thing. You can move with your partner.
I never tried to
Tell them thank you very much.
I never tried to reach you either.
And come back around and find your way back to your seats.
Did I ever think of you
So, how was that? Wasn't too bad, was it? Did you all find your precious thing? Okay, just hold that. Hold. We'll have a moment to share after this, maybe when we break bread together. So, one of the projects that I didn't show on here, so, I don't know, 20-some years I taught children, K through 5, so you saw a lot of those images and making performances and teaching them dance. And I think this group right now, I have about 7 that are Jefferson dancers now, which is kind of exciting. That's probably my last group that came through. Over the course of the years, I don't know how many, there's been quite a few. But it's great to see when they go on to pursue an art form like that. Some of them gone to, some of the top schools, Juilliard and NYU, and pursued dance and started their own companies, and it's amazing to see. But as an artist, I feel that it's our responsibility to, there's a lot of names now, like art that's socially relevant, or art and social change. There's like a lot of kind of ways to talk about it. But I think this might have been in 2007. With a team, I designed a project called Harmos. And Harmos being the word, a Greek word of the base root of harmony. So Harmos is how disparate things come together. And Harmos was a peace project that happened as a part of Hiroshima Day, but it was a long project, about a year-long project. And we asked people all around the city, what does peace mean to you? There's no pictures on there of that, sorry. And we made flags. We made like Tibetan kind of flags, but they were just Muslim flags, peace flags, and I had a visual artist working with us. We went to festivals, to schools, to colleges, to churches, asking this question, what does peace mean to you? And then I created a piece where there is a big lotus, and I worked with this amazing artist, and we made these huge lotus leaves, lotus petals, and community people came and we painted them and decorated them, but he figured out how to make this lotus open and close. And it was held at 3 parks in Portland, one of them being the main Japanese-American Historical Plaza, or Bill of Rights Plaza, if you haven't gone there, down by the waterfront. You will go soon because the cherry blossoms will be in bloom and they will be beautiful, but you'll see the plaza there, which is the history of Japanese Americans. So if you start on one end, you'll read the poetry about the early immigrants, and then what we saw when we came to America. And then there's a break in the wall. And that break in the wall represents Executive Order 9066 and being sent to the camps, and there's a big rock in the center there, and that rock has 10 names on there. They're the names of the 10 main camps, which each housed 10 to 20,000. So this was a kind of a vision statement, but I feel like it's more like my mission statement. Okay, so it's our responsibility as artists to offer ways for people to express their creativity and humanity amidst a world of global wars, community divisions, and rising human fear. Creative expression, invention, and action are the cornerstones for a world of interconnectedness, global well-being, and personal fulfillment. So, today on the radio, when they were talking about America being the least happy country in the world, why is that? Because artists aren't in charge. I think that, we need to turn to artists more, and we need to find the artists within us. We need to, keep asking and discovering this relationship with the muse, whatever your muse is, whatever you know that is the right thing to do, the right thing to follow. So over the period of time since this major project, which was big, and it was really my first, what we call community engagement, where we really involve a lot of people. I mean, there are over 500 people that were involved and engaged, as well as 50 performers that were there. But it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but it was so worth it, because in the end we had these gateways, right, that led into the lotus that opened, and all the flags were there, all 500 flags. So it was a beautiful. Were you there? Were you at that, Harmos? I mean, it was a while ago. So now, taking that forward, right? I'm now a community, what do they call them? Conversation leader for Oregon Humanities. So lately, I found myself talking a lot, which is not what I really. I mean, it's okay. But anyway, I've been challenged to talk more through these community conversations and through a project that was funded through Vanport Mosaic Festival called Stories in Movement. And my performance project called Gambatte, An American Legacy, is a part of Vanport Mosaic. And it's because the Japanese were taken out of Nihon Machi with executive order. They were put into the Portland Assembly Center, which was about 4,000 people from as far as Yakima and Wapato, and then while the camps were being built. So the barracks were being built in Minidoka, Hart Mountain, other places, but most of the Portland people went there. When they left, they were given, what, $25 and a bus ticket. So, you know, I think about my grandparents who, you know, if you can imagine, like right now, if you spent your entire life building something and then in one day it's all gone. But prior to that, there was, you know, people that were taken out of the community too. So anyway, this story, this Japanese-American story, is not just my story. Oh, I'm sorry, and then we went to Vanport with that $25 and a ticket, and Janice was one of the people that went there. Then Vanport flooded. Memorial Day. How many of you don't know what Vanport? Don't know. Okay, so Vanport was a constructed city that was between Vancouver and Portland. It was Vanport. It was a total city, and it was built by Edward Kaiser of Kaiser Permanente, that got kind of big after that. He had his first hospital there, but he was a steel man before that, and so he wanted to sell his steel, right? So he built ships for the war. So he got housing, the federal money. He built a town for 45,000 people. This was not a small town. This was the greatest number of African Americans that came to Portland, greater influx of people from all over the country, and Japanese Americans after camp was out. Not out, but over. They were able to get out. And so Gambatte Be Strong was a play that I put together 3 years ago, and it's evolving into a new piece called Gambatte, An American Legacy. Because, like I said before, my story is not just my story. My story is your story. I want my story to be part of the American story and our story. So it's a story that everyone should talk about. So June 1st, 2nd, and 4th, and 5th will be at Interstate Firehouse Cultural Center performing that Gambatte, An American Legacy, and there's some cards there, but it doesn't have the 4th and 5th date on there because I made this save the date before those dates were extended. So back to telling you just a little bit about Stories in Movement, and then I think I'll be done. Okay, and so Stories in Movement, I want to tell you about this because it's sort of an interesting project. So the city decided to take half of their money from the neighborhood associations, and the neighborhood associations were doing most of their work in getting neighbors together, in mediating. So they're spending a lot of money mediating. So instead of mediating, they're like, why don't we have people talk to each other before there's a problem? And so they decided to create a new office. It's called the Office of Civic Life, or Civic Dialogue. And they funded 5 projects to explore how is this going to be done. And so Vanport Mosaic, one of the founding directors, producers of Vanport Mosaic, Lara Forti, and myself submitted a grant. The grant was accepted. And so now we're doing this project around the town, around Portland, and listening to Vanport survivors and using the story of Vanport to talk about how will this help us, or can this help us imagine a world today? Like, if Vanport would have continued, because it was the greatest cultural experiment that ever happened in Portland. So what if it hadn't flooded? You know, people got together. They lived together. They had an income. They all had a job. They even had food. They had food. But I mean, they had grocery stores there. I mean, it was a whole city. They had hospitals, stores, colleges, library, movie house. And so how could how they live inform us today? So that's kind of what we're exploring. But we're exploring that through these community circles and their listening circles. So communities coming together, they're listening to stories, they're sharing stories out of their own community. We're really sculpting the participants to be representative of all communities that are here in Portland so that we get all the voices in there. And then I've infused a creative aspect where, as we're talking, there's an artist over here painting everything that we're talking about. And then there's another artist over here listening to what people are saying, and he's constructing poetry. And every now and then I get in a move, hopefully, you know, to get people to move together. And then when we do our report to City Hall, it won't be like a report. It will be a little bit more of a performance kind of thing. So I want you to just go back to your precious thing, and can you just like do your movement from where you're sitting? Can you repeat your movement like I could do mine? Okay. And like, I want you to start from here. Start from big. Okay. Now find your shape. What is your shape that you end up with? Start from big, wherever it is, whatever it is. Okay. And then we're going to put that music back on, and we're just going to do that for like a minute. And I want you could stand up again, but I want you to like think about how you could discover and find or pick something and bring it back to this moment, or put it somewhere. Okay? You can stand up if you want. You can go back out there. You can, whatever you feel like doing it. This is the end. You're the end. You're the movement piece. So you can just stand there and reach and find all the different ways you might pull it in back to you. And thank you. Good job.